His career began as an analyst at Strategic Africa Securities, followed by his role at Cal Bank Limited. David's expertise spans equity trading, corporate finance, market research, and financial advisory as well. So, with all this impressive experience, there's a lot we can learn from him today. So, David, we're thrilled to have you here, and I'm sure everyone's looking forward to hearing your insights. And before we dive into the main part of the session, let me give you a quick overview of what to expect. I've put together a little PowerPoint with the 5 main segments of our meeting. So here's the introduction session. Then we're going to have an opening speech by David, where he will discuss his professional journey, talk about his early career experiences, key milestones, and some of his insights on the current state of the Ethiopian capital market. Then he will discuss about career aspects, skills and qualifications needed in the capital market, and share insights on how to build a successful career path. Then we're going to have a Q&A session where you can ask David any of your questions. Finally, we're going to wrap things up with a closing remark and a quick recap. So the whole meeting is expected to take about an hour. We will spend roughly 10 minutes on David's opening speech, another 15 minutes discussing career aspects, and 25 minutes for the Q&A session. We'll save the last 5 minutes for the closing remark. So now, David, go ahead and start with your opening speech. To kick things off, could you share with us a bit about your journey in the world of finance? We'd love to hear about how you began your career, maybe some of the key milestones you've achieved, and your thoughts on the current and upcoming Ethiopian capital market. Over to you, David.
Thank you so much, Suliana, for the wonderful introduction and your guidance for this session. I am indeed very happy to join you and your colleagues, and kudos for the wonderful work you're doing, bringing up career professionals in the capital markets. My name is David. As the intro said, I've been working in the capital markets for maybe 22 years, and I'm happy to share my experiences with you. Before you get into any career, you'd like to know what are the prospects. As a young man, you'd be asking, is this what is going to make me a lot of money that is going to pay my bills and give me a little extra so that I can live the life that I want? These are thoughts which would come through your mind all the time. I graduated from university maybe around, I think it was the year 2000, and I saw the advert for the Ghana Stock Exchange then that was organizing courses for young professionals. I decided to take it because I was still exploring what to do with my career. So I did the stock exchange course before I graduated. I was still in university then. So at least I had some knowledge around the stock market from passing that course. When I finished university and I was doing in Ghana, we call it a national service. You need to work for an institution at least for 1 year after you graduate from university. So I saw at least an advert in the newspapers about a company. It was SAS looking for a broker, or analyst to join. And of course, because I had that experience, I decided to join. It was mainly opportunistic. I didn't say I had really focused and thought about saying this is the career I want to pursue. At that stage, I was just looking for a job, right? And after national service, you are looking for a job. So that was the first job ad I saw, and I felt, I could be qualified for this. So I applied. But as I got in and I started working, in the brokerage industry, I started learning, this could be a lot more. There could be a lot more to this than I knew. I started reading a lot about the world stock markets, what brokers do globally, what they were doing in Africa, and it piqued my interest. For me, what was really helpful was I always looked at what the world was doing, what brokers were doing in the world, and what we were doing in Ghana back then. And I saw the huge gap, right, between what we were doing, what the world was doing. And I thought, we can do a lot more to fill this gap. So every time I read, the more I was building my skills, right? And I realized that the more I started talking about what I had read, the more people started to take notice, because I was able to offer very useful suggestions around how the market should go, how our company should go. right? So the stock exchange took notice. I think my peers took notice. People in the market took notice. So I was headhunted, after just 1 year at SAS to join Cal Bank then, which was one of the bigger local banks, and they had a brokerage subsidiary. So I was recruited to head their trading desk then, around 2002. Again, most of the things that I was doing then was learning, always reading about what is happening in the world, in other markets, especially markets that were close to us. At that time, I used to look at Asia a lot, Malaysia, which was maybe a little bit more closer. I used to look at Kenya, I look at Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire. SE was a little bit more advanced, but I like to look at those markets and look at the companies, how they were performing, and more importantly, how the analysts there were presenting their reports. I think that was the key thing, because research was very new and we didn't have research in the market. So benchmarking all the things that what other markets, especially those close to us, were presenting their research reports was very useful. So I started applying some of those tools to our work and always learning. Thankfully, there were a lot of free tools that I used. So we started improving our research reports, and it gave us good audience globally. What I then realized was, look, stock markets are global. It doesn't matter any country you sit in. Once you have opportunity, anybody in the world would like to put money in your stock market once it will make a return. So because of the research that we started preparing, we started getting hits from people all over the world, in Europe, in North America, who were all interested in buying stocks in Ghana. At that time, the Ghana economic growth story was also good. Democracy was being entrenched. The economy was doing well. We had just come out of a HIPIC program. Ghana was projected to be one of the fastest growing economies in Africa. So there was attraction at the economic level. So people started asking, where do I invest? And once people start asking that question, they look out for what's happening on the stock market. So we started getting a lot of hits because of the research we produced. Right. I think after the second year in Cal, I was then I also decided to apply because the CEO role became vacant. I was young, I was 28 years old then, right? With a lot of seniors ahead of me. But I decided to apply for the role and I got the job. Right. I think it was all because of the skills that I had, brought into the market and the kind of network that I had started to build. Right. At that time, I had figured out that to be able to do well in business, you need to solve a problem. Right. And so the more problems you solve for people, the better your business will grow. So in the brokerage industry, we're solving two problems. It's either for individuals or for companies. So people have excess money and people have deficit. People need money. So for companies, they come to the market or use the market to raise capital from individuals and institutions that have excess money. So what your job is as a broker is to sit as a bridge between these two, right? If an individual wants to invest and everybody wants to make more money or become a better person in future, building on their wealth. So they are always looking for opportunities to grow, their hard-earned money. So they would look for an investment advisor that can tell them or advise them on where to invest their money and how to grow it. So if you are able to position yourself as a go-to person that someone can come to and say, look, I'm earning 1,000, the currency is BER, right? Or 2,000 BER a month. And my target is to buy a house. So how do I save or invest over a certain number of years to be able to buy the house? Or I'm looking to further my education, right? Go and do a master's program. What do I save or what do I invest in that will give me that target? Or I'm just looking to build a safety net. How do I build a safety net? And we always say individuals must have at least 6 months of their expenditure, of their monthly expenditure saved as a safety net. So individuals will come to you and would look to you as a specialist. You should give them advice. And the more you guide people on an investment journey and they are successful, the more recommendations they will give you for your work. So I had become, made myself a go-to person for individuals and for companies that had excess money to invest. Right. And the more you're able to pick and choose the right stocks that will give them a return, the more they would recommend you. So you build a good client base for yourselves, both individually and at the institutional level. Of course, very early on in your career, you should know that the institutions have more money. And for brokerage, the more money you are able to trade, the more money you make. So never, ever leave out institutional money. Retail is good, but the money is much smaller. So always try to go for institutional first before you go for retail. But more importantly, you have to solve a problem. Thankfully, I see Ethiopia, huge market, huge potential, right? So the same problem exists. Individuals who are growing, have growing companies, have excess money, they will be asking themselves, where should we put this money in order to make a return? And this new Ethiopian exchange that is coming up, who should we talk to that can guide us to be able to invest in these markets to make a return? So that is where you come in, those who are building a career in the brokerage industry. You need to build expertise very quickly so that you can then, take up or be able to solve problems for individuals and for companies. So as I did that a lot more in 2005, we started building quite a successful portfolio. Then in 2009, the Ghana Stock Exchange decided to automate. The exchange at the time was not automated, so we used to write on boards, right? Very, very traditional. Then we decided to automate. My company was maybe about number 8 out of 20 brokerage companies in the market. So automation then was a new opportunity for change in the market. So we took up automation very aggressively and decided to introduce technology tools that will help people to invest directly on the stock exchange. And for the first time, people also in the outside world could see live trading on the Ghana Stock Exchange through our platforms. So once we jumped on the technology bandwagon very early, that attracted a lot more clients to us. So again, opportunity will come, but how do you prepare for it? Because the opportunity came and we were ready, we leapt from number 8 to number 1. So we then became the number 1 broker in Ghana because we had introduced technology, with a lot of the foreign portfolio managers now flocking to us because of the transparency that we provided, supported by research. So that then took us to number 1 in the market, right? And then we continue to stay at least number 1 or within the top 3 for the next 15 years, right? So these are opportunities will come in the market, but how prepared are you and how ready are you to execute? So that also matters. Well, I then left maybe the brokerage industry after 15 years of working in there. I wanted to pursue my own businesses because I had worked as a subsidiary in a bank for many years. But immediately I left the stock exchange, said, hey, we won't let you leave the market. You should come and consult for us because we want to know how we can develop new products, and encourage new listings on the market. So I joined the Ghana Stock Exchange as a consultant, helping them to develop new products. Again, the trend then was to develop green bonds because sustainability had become a topic. So I helped them to develop the green bond markets. I helped them to develop a commercial paper market, right? And a few of other innovations that we brought to the stock exchange. And now we're seeing a lot more issuers going onto the market. Then I joined FSG Africa as well as a consultant to bring my expertise across Africa. So since then, I've been working in Kenya, trying to develop the markets. I also work with the team that was building up the Ethiopian Stock Exchange. I hosted them in Ghana as part of their study tour, provided some guidance as well, because the FSD was heavily involved in setting up the Kenyan market. I'm also currently doing some market studies in Rwanda, in Tanzania, and Uganda to help them set up funds that will help invest in SMEs across those markets. I also advise British International Investments. That's the largest investor in Africa. They have a Ghana program there where they have a fund that is investing in SMEs. So I also advise them on trying to help companies to become investor ready so funds can invest in them. So my experience is really broad. I've tried to summarize it in the very short time that Suliana has given me. But I'd just say that the opportunity, as I see in Ethiopia, is huge. I mean, after Nigeria, Ethiopian is probably the biggest market. And the markets are new, the capital markets are very new. Everybody I know in Africa that is interested in investing is excited about the potential of the Ethiopian market. And I'm hoping that you guys in there are also excited because the opportunity is limitless. I see a lot of billionaires and billionaires coming out of this opportunity in Ethiopia, right? I see it, I smell it. I myself want to be a part of it because the opportunity is really huge. So you really are the beginning of a market that will grow, exponentially over the next 5 to 10 years. So I think that you should definitely embrace this as a career. And if you do, because of the immense potential, it has, the sky will be your limit or probably just your starting point. If you start embracing some of the early things, the early career things that I've spoken to you about, you will definitely do well in this market. So I think I'm okay with the first part, Soliana. Should I move on to the second, or you want to come in with a few questions?
Yes, definitely. Now you can, I think you can go to the part where you talk about the, like, generally, what are your insights on the current state and the establishment of the Ethiopian capital market? I think we can talk about that shortly, and we can go ahead to discuss the different career aspects that are possible to pursue.
Okay, thank you. I think I already started touching base, speaking a little bit about the Ethiopian market opportunity. It is a huge economy, no doubt, very huge population, and there are no capital markets. But you know, the capital markets play a very critical role in any economy because capital formation and capital mobilization is critical to fund productivity in any economy. So the capital market is the long-term end of the financial markets because that's where you're able to mobilize capital, whether equity and long-term debt. And that is what is required to grow companies in any economy. So Ethiopia is at the beginning of capital formation, where you are going to mobilize a lot of capital. I also see that there are a lot of state-owned companies that are all going to come to the market. And there are some big names I've heard, right? Probably including Ethiopian Airways, Ethiopia Telecom, quite big names. This is the first time that ordinary citizens or Ethiopians can get to own an equity stake in these companies. So it's a very, very exciting time. People can get to buy a stake and get to share in the returns from the profits that these companies generate over time. So that's one. The capital market is also quite broad. I've only spoken about brokerage. There's also asset management, there's custody, there's so many other things that you can take up. But overall, the opportunity, like I said, any investment banker in Africa is excited about what the Ethiopian opportunity brings, and they are looking forward to participating in this. I've already seen Stanbic Bank and a few others applying for licenses from the new Capital Market Authority in Ethiopia to try and get in. But I think the opportunities are huge. The Ethiopian Stock Exchange is also very new. So many opportunities abound. They're also waiting for their licensing for the authority. And after that, those companies that I mentioned and a lot more will be getting listed on the Ethiopian exchange, which means people can now buy shares and become part owners of those businesses. To be able to do that, they would require intermediaries, professionals like you who take up a career or role in those markets that will be able to guide and pick and choose which stocks individuals want and execute for them and follow through and ensure that those returns are coming in and meeting the client's objectives or the client's needs based on which they invested. So opportunity huge, lots of money to be made. If you ask me, any early career person has that in mind. Will this make me money? Yes, a lot of money, but you have to work hard for it, right? You need to study, you need to acquire the skills so that you can become a thought leader in those markets. So that's what I'd say about the Ethiopian opportunity for now.
Thank you. Thank you a lot for that, David. It was really exciting to hear about your journey and also your thoughts on the current state of the Ethiopian market. That was very insightful. So, going along, you also touched up on the career aspects a little bit, but so given the interest in the world of finance and capital markets, our interns have also, there's this buzz around the upcoming Ethiopian capital market. So I expect our interns to be quite excited about the new opportunities ahead. So, David, as we look forward to these opportunities, what advice do you have for them on navigating this field? What key skills and qualifications should they focus on building in advance before the upcoming Ethiopian capital market? And how can they make the most out of, I don't know, opportunities like networking, mentorship to set themselves apart and to set themselves up for success? So we'd love to hear your thoughts on how they can get ready for this exciting future.
Okay, thank you, Soliana. It's in the world of finance is changing very quickly thanks to technology, but the basic skills are still required. So if you're going to get into the world of finance and you're going to get into capital markets, your ability to interpret and understand financial statements is basic. I mean, if you take a company's financial statement, you should be able to rip it apart understand what an income statement is, what the balance sheet is. So you should be able to understand how the business has raised capital, how that capital has been deployed, and what kind of returns is coming on it. So financial statement analysis is basic. You need to be able to understand that. After that, you should be able to understand the industry analysis. So what is the industry that this company is operating in looking like? So if you've picked a bank, you should be able to understand how is this bank financed, right? Is it equity? Is it debt? Is it some mess? You need to be and then how is it deployed? What assets are in this bank's balance sheet? Are they doing corporate loans? Are they doing retail loans, right? And what percentage? And what's the return? And what's the non-performing loan ratio looking like? So these are, for example, if you're analyzing a bank, these are things you'll be looking for. Then you would look at the banking industry in Ethiopia. Who are the competitors, right? You probably look at Porter's 5 forces to be able to understand the industry dynamics. Then you look at the economy, right? What's the economy of Ethiopia looking like? In which direction? What's the growth? What are inflation rates? What are interest rates, right? What's the exchange rate? And how does it affect the banking sector, right? So you should be able to build and understand the connection between the economic performance, industry performance, and company performance. So being able to build an understanding and guess what's the impact of certain policies would be, or the impact of what changes in macroeconomic factors would be on a company that they are analyzing. Very, very basic and critical. So build an understanding of how the economy works, how industry works, how finance works, how companies work. Very, very important, right? So those are the core skills that you would need, basic. Then you should be able to go on and build yourself a network. Okay, so apart from your core skills, well, let me add technology. Use of technology is now also very, very basic. Right now, we've moved, if you have basic Excel skills, PowerPoint, those are so basic, right? Everybody has them. So you need to have advanced Excel skills, right? And these days, there's a lot of AI in use. So personal AI tools that you can use for your own productivity is important. You don't need to be overworking yourself if you are doing a PowerPoint presentation. Lots of AI tools will do that for you, right? Even Excel and analyzing financial statements, you've got AI tools that can help you. AI tools will help you for note taking. You don't need to get a secretary. You can always go back and refer. So there are many basic AI tools that you need to know how to use right now, because it helps you become a more efficient person, which will help you deliver most of your projects on time. So the basics are out of the way: your financial statement analysis, how things work generally in the markets, being able to analyze and report. Very important. The basic efficiency and working tools you should also understand, right? Communication. You should be able to write and present a good report coherently. And you should be able to speak also well, especially if you are client facing. If you're in the back office, that's fine. You may not need to speak much, but you would have to be able to write. So communication skills are also very, very important, whether you are writing or you are speaking to clients. If you're going to talk to clients, you should have these communication skills, because you're going to sell. You're going to convince people to buy and give you their money. So the power of your persuasive skills is very important. You should be able to speak coherently about the opportunity and what is in it for people that are going to trust you and give you money. Very important. Then networking. I'm sure you've heard the saying that your network is your net worth, right? The people you know contributes the amount of money you make. And for me, it has always been useful. Even till date, I can get a call from somebody who I met 10 years ago, who I've never spoken to, and say, some company spoke to me that's looking to raise money, and you came to mind because you left a lasting impression on them when you spoke. So it's important to build a network, right? Get to know people, understand what they do, right? It doesn't matter which sector. Get to know people from everywhere, understand what they do, and let them also understand what you do. More importantly, when you remember or you come across any business from a contact that they do, send business their way. That is the best way in which they'll never forget you. If you send someone business, they don't forget you. So in your network, seek to build value rather than seek to take away, right? So maybe let me try and break it down. At your level, you're doing your internships here. Try and network with as many people as you're working with, right? Don't leave ET not knowing the other colleagues you have who are here with you on interns. Get to know them, get to know what they do, where they are coming from, what their interests are, How about the full-time colleagues? Talk to them a lot more. When you see any conference that is free, that has networking opportunities, attend. Walk up to people, speak to them, ask them what they do. Just get to know people, remember them, send them an occasional message, because these are all potential clients for you when you get into the capital markets. Right? So these are the top 3 things I would suggest for you if you want to get and build a successful career in these markets. But okay, let me talk about mentorship. Also extremely important. If you have a guide who has done it before, then there's no need to reinvent the wheel. When you get to a crossroads, you're at a junction, you need to take a decision. When you get a guide, it is always much better. People have, gone across this path, have traversed this road already. They understand what the markets are and the various challenges that the markets bring. So reaching out to them, speaking to them for guidance is always helpful, right? So never ever miss the opportunity. If you meet somebody who is ahead of you in your career, ask them for mentorship opportunities. Ask them for the chance to sit down and discuss, your thinking about your career, what you want to do in the market. So don't miss out on such opportunities. And the capital market is also quite broad, very broad. Many intermediaries that are working in the capital markets, right? We've got the stockbrokers. Those are the ones I spoke about. These are people who take orders from clients and go and buy and sell on the stock exchange. So on the Ethiopian stock exchange, when the companies are listed, some brokers will be speaking to clients, trying to raise sales, and will be going to the market to execute. We've also got fund managers. Now, these people would come, they pool resources of individuals together. They put it into a fund. So Yusef, Nathaniel, Tazeb may not go directly to the Ethiopian Stock Exchange to trade, but the 3 of you will put money into a fund that is probably managed by Yared. So Yared will be a fund manager. He'll pull in the funds of Nathaniel, Tazeb, Yusef, and Meron, put them into a fund, right? They will own units in that fund, which are priced, right? And then Yared would go to the market and decide which stocks or which bonds that I'm going to buy for the fund of these investors. So fund managers are also they're also key players in the market. They pool funds of individuals and institutions together and then take decisions on where these funds should be invested. They also play a key role because not every investor has the time to choose which stocks to buy or which bonds to buy. So many are happy to outsource that choice to a professional fund manager. So fund managers will take these funds and then decide on behalf of their clients where this money should be invested. They have what you call assets under management. So some fund managers are quite huge. They have a lot more assets under management, and they can affect, trading in the markets. If a fund manager decides to buy Ethiopian Telecom, or the market knows that a fund manager is buying, you see that it means the price is going to go up because you're going to get quite significant demand for the price of that company. So fund managers play a key role. You also have another segment, which are custodians. Once people are buying assets, you're buying Ethiopia Tel, you're buying Ethiopian Airways and other companies, somebody must keep those assets. So the assets are kept separately from a fund manager or a broker. So they cannot touch your assets when you buy. So we call these people custodians. They keep the assets of fund managers and investors who have bought them so that they are kept separate. If anything happens to a fund manager or a broker, the assets will not be affected. They will be kept separately. So you can also build a career in custody within the markets. You also have pension fund managers. These are specialized people who pick and manage people's pensions. So they take long-term funds from companies, from employees, and invest these funds on behalf of the employers and employees, so that when they go on retirement, at least they will have something to live off. So you have got pension fund managers, you've got generalist fund managers, you've got custodians, you've got brokers, right? You also have private equity or venture capital managers. These managers raise funds from mainly institutional investors, and they invest these funds in SMEs or companies. Right? So private equity people will mobilize, but their strategy is to identify maybe profitable or potentially profitable SMEs or companies and invest in these companies. Private equity fund managers would usually sit on the boards of these companies, maybe also help to appoint management and They are involved in the running and strategic direction of the business until such a time that they would sell out of the business and get out. And PE fund managers can sell out of the business by selling the company through an IPO on the stock exchange or by looking for a private sale, selling it to another private equity fund or to another company, right, through a trade sale. So these are all potential career opportunities. This depending on what your interest is. I mean, you can pick one, but it's always good to enter in, feel your way about in the industry, see the one that really appeals to you, and then build your career in that path. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, David. That was amazing. I hope everyone was taking notes. There were very valuable advice there. So now let's move on to the much anticipated question and answer session. So interns, if you have any questions, please raise your hands and I'll call and ask you. We'll have two questions at a time. Then David will answer them. Once those are answered, we'll take the next two. So let's get started. Okay, Yosef, you can start.
Hey, thank you, and thank you for this insightful meeting. It was very motivating to hear someone such experienced and to hear your experience. And my question is, you have mentioned a lot of intermediaries such as stockbrokers, fund managers, custodians, etc. But in Ethiopian context, the and in the directives on the capital market service providers, there are 18 new service providers, including credit rating agencies. But there is no mention of valuation firms. Is it possible to have a successful stock market without established valuation firms? And what should be taken to address this gap? And how can policymakers and regulators ensure the accuracy and reliability of companies' valuation in the early stages of the Ethiopian capital market development? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Yusuf. Good question. For the markets, though, valuation is conducted by stockbrokers, by asset managers. Each institution would usually perform their own valuation. So you've got buy-side analysts and sell-side analysts who would all undertake their own valuation and pricing, and they would negotiate a fee before a trade execution is done. For credit rating agencies who would usually rate issuances, they are regulated, right? So they would submit at least their policies and their let's say rating formulas or algorithms to a regulator for approval. Credit rating agencies are critical in markets. In some African markets, though, there were companies that were rated that performed badly on the stock exchange, so they have a bad name in some. But they are quite a useful tool for references for investors in the market. But they are also regulated by the capital market authority, so they are subject to the same rigorous checks that brokers or asset managers would be subject to. But for valuations, there are no really licensed independent valuation firms, as valuation sits within the analysts of each capital market player. Thank you for the question, Yosef.
Great. Anyone who wants to go next? Okay. Nasnil, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. David, for your insights. If you have been keeping on the Ethiopian economy, we have been going through a lot of macroeconomic reforms. So, can you maybe walk us through how the upcoming capital market can address current economic issues like inflation and foreign exchange shortages?
Yeah, thank you, Nathaniel. I think the biggest impact of the capital markets would be the inflow of foreign exchange. And that I realize is quite a big issue in the Ethiopian economy, right? The availability of foreign exchange. Because you don't earn so much in foreign exchange, there's always pressure on the currency, and the government has to come up with all these interventions. But what we've seen in other African markets is that if you have strong domestic companies that are listed on the exchange, you have a lot of portfolio investors outside Africa that want to invest in those companies. And these bring in very important foreign direct investment to acquire stakes in those local business. So you have a lot of foreign exchange flowing into the Ethiopian economy from the capital markets. So that's one of the best ways I see which would have an impact on the Ethiopian exchange. In Ghana, over the last 20 years, you've seen maybe 19 or 20 billion in the last 5 years flowing in as foreign direct investment. That's a huge relief for governments that are always looking out for foreign exchange. The other side is that this foreign exchange will also flow out if the companies or the investors decide to sell out. So the longer companies perform, the longer this FX stays in. But if there's a crisis, then they always look to exit. Thanks, Nathaniel. Yes, Hemela, please go on.
Go on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. David, for your very insightful words. I wanted to know about what professions or services you think should be a priority to make the upcoming capital markets run smoothly, especially at first. Like, what should we be prioritizing through like professions? What kind of professionals should we be raising initially to make the start good?
Well, thanks. Well, we've started from the regulators, which is good because they are setting up the rules and the procedures and the processes for the market to happen. After that, they are moving to set up the stock exchange, which is good, right? Then after the stock exchange is done, then we need the investment banks, right? These are the intermediaries I spoke about who will now bring in the trading and bring in the companies to list on the stock exchange. So after the investment banks, then you have the fund managers who also now mobilize the capital to start trading through the investment banks on the stock exchanges and start buying the stocks that the investment banks are selling. So those will be the three key pillars of the markets, right? That will be set up. So investment banks will come in after the regulators, the stock exchange, the investment banks will come in, the fund managers will come in. Well, investment banks can be brokers or just corporate finance experts. And then the markets can start flourishing. Yeah. Thank you, Hemela.
Okay, do we have any more questions? Miron, go ahead.
Thank you, David, for sharing your invaluable experiences with us. My question is that you were mentioning much of the large opportunities in the newly developing Ethiopian capital market, and that is very exciting to hear about the opportunities. But my question is that what would be the potential challenges that we should be prepared for to take a career in a newly developing capital market?
Yeah, thanks, Meron. Good question. The opportunities are there, but they will definitely come with some of the teething problems. The advantage for also starting a market late is that you get to leapfrog some of the challenges that other markets have seen. For example, in our case, when we had manual trading and other things, sometimes records were not always right. You would have shareholders mixing up or registrars mixing up the number of shares that people have bought, etc. But you are going to that if you do open the market, you will not have 100,000 people coming in to the market to buy. So you need to be patient about building the business. It will take time, and a lot of people don't understand the stock exchange, how it works when you buy shares, and they also don't understand the risk. So those are some of the teething challenges you will face. Another thing is you can explain that when you buy stocks, it goes up and it comes down. Right? People are happy, they say they understand. But when you actually bought a stock and you've lost money, the reaction is completely different. So these are challenges that you face, and people will tell you, this is not business anybody should get involved in at all because you can lose money. But of course, in the long term, you know that you can get a better return. Right? So from the beginning, you won't have a mad rush of people coming. Business will be slow. You need to do a lot more education in order to convert people to become clients and convert them to start buying. And that could be a slow, painful process. So that you should be aware of. Thank you.
Okay, Noel, you can go ahead. You'll see if you can go after him.
Okay, thank you, Sir David. It's been an amazing opportunity to be presented in this meeting. So when most people think about their career in finance, most people fear the risk and loss of money. And they say things don't always go as we wish, but what matters is how we react to them. So what are your suggestions on how we should react on such losses and risks on behalf of our emotions? Thank you.
Yeah, always a hard one. Believe me, when you lose money, it's a totally different reaction. In my time as a broker, when the market was good, I used to get invited to all the big parties, had a boat ride, and I was introduced to several people. Oh, here's a guy who's been investing for me, who's making money. I felt good about myself. I hadn't seen a bear market or a downturn before in my early career. when the prices started going down, you know, I was surprised myself. And then clients send me orders. Can you sell my stock and exit this position for me? And you go to the market and there are no buyers, really, or the buyers are just not enough. And every day the price keeps going down and you are unable to sell for your clients. So they keep calling you every day. Have you sold it? They're like, no, I haven't sold it. It's dropped further, and they get really upset and angry, right? They tell you you're very wicked. I'm losing money. You're not reacting. You are intentionally keeping my stock. You are selling other people's shares ahead of me, and then you lose friends as well, right? So I learned to balance that. Look, you need to know that the bad times will come, the good times will come. And you over time, after you've gone through this, you're able to handle your emotions better. So you don't get too excited when you've made money, and you also don't get too disappointed when you've lost money. You're able to keep your emotions at a flat level and in check. But it's very important also that before you invest for anyone, you let them understand the risk. Right? If you let them understand that this can go down, but you need to be patient when it goes down so that it can turn around, it's more helpful. If you don't explain the risk fully from the beginning, then you're going to get a significant backlash. So right from the beginning, you should let them know that on the stock market, things can drop. If you're buying fixed income, it's different. And it's not everybody who should buy equities because they don't have the personality for it. So if it's not for you, stay with fixed income, buy your treasury bills or buy your bonds where you have fixed income. You know what you are getting, right? So stay there. It's not everybody that has the risk appetite to be able to buy stocks. So you should always try and segregate, especially when you are profiling your clients, that for these people, they can't accept risk, so no equities, fixed income. And those who are going into equities, rehash the risk several times before they buy. That would help you have less emotions in your career. Joseph?
Okay, thank you again. And if I heard you correctly, I think you've mentioned that you are helping foreign companies in investing in SMEs. Could you walk us through the process you use to facilitate these investments? And additionally, on this subject matter, with the Ethiopian ESX planning to implement the blockchain technology for tokenizing assets to support SMEs, what challenge do you foresee in terms of regulation and technology, and how can we address those challenges to ensure successful implementation?
All right. Thank you very much, Yusuf. So for SME investing, it's usually done through funds. So you create a fund. In some markets, it's a limited liability fund. In other countries, it's created by a partnership act. So you create a fund which is formed as a company, and then investors put money into the fund, and the fund has a fund manager. So somebody who is designated to take decisions on which companies that the fund will invest in, right? So maybe a fund may have a healthcare or education strategy. So they would look for companies that are operating in the healthcare sector in Ethiopia or in education in Ethiopia. They would analyze these companies, and then the fund would make an investment directly into the company. The fund would then appoint maybe board members to sit on the board of the company to ensure that the governance is right. Then they would help to approve or shape the business model or strategy of the company so that they can deliver returns to the fund. After a number of years, the fund would then sell its shareholding in that company to somebody else and recover the money and then pay it back to investors. So you are hoping that by the time you sell out, you would have taken your company from maybe 1 million revenue to maybe 10 million or 30 million in revenue. When you sell out, you get maybe a 5 times or 10 times return. And that return is given back to investors who put money in the fund. So that's how SME funds are typically structured, especially in our markets. Right now, the use of technology, and again, like I said, because the Ethiopian stock market is now being set up, it has the opportunity to pick and choose from the best. So lots of people have done the experiments with blockchain and tokenization. Lots of them have failed. Now you have some markets that have been successful in regulating these markets. So the ESX is going to pick the best of such regulation that has been done to be, to be applied in the use case of Ethiopia, so that there will be less risk. The only other thing is educating SMEs and market players about the use of this technology so that they can become more impactful and widely utilized. Thank you.
Great. I think we took enough questions. Maybe, do you have any questions, guys? Like one more, maybe? If not, I think we can conclude the Q&A session, given our time as well. So as we wrap up, we go to the concluding remarks. So as a conclusion, I want to ask you what advice you would give yourself if you met your younger self, probably maybe at the level of our interns now. If you meet young David, what advice would you give him? It could be career-wise or life-wise or anything you've learned through your life so far. What advice, what heartfelt advice would you give? I think that would be a great way to conclude and reflect for us all.
Well, so good question. I'd say plan your life much earlier now, right? Have a good work-life balance. Be very, very serious about your work, right? But don't take yourselves too seriously. Know that whatever position you occupy is the position and you are different from it, right? But learn as much as you can. I mean, you cannot stop learning every day because technology is what is applied in the world. Skill sets are the same, but technology and efficiency changes every day. So you cannot stop learning. So keep learning as aggressively as you can. Keep building your network aggressively. Be deliberate about building your network, right? Take that extremely seriously, but make sure you maintain a good work-life balance. And family, very, very important as well. Thank you. The fact that you are even here and attending this shows that you started making the right choices. You started learning, doing internships, and staying in a career or planning your career early in life. So most of you here have already made the right choice. So I wish you all the best of luck. Hopefully, when I come over to Ethiopia, I'll meet some of you, and we'll continue the journey. And some of you should become the biggest players in the Ethiopian Stock Exchange. Probably some of you should be the millionaires and billionaires in the next generation, having built wealth from this new emerging opportunity. But thank you so much for the opportunity to interact with you. Thank you. I'm happy I could share this opportunity with you. I'm still out on holiday, so you see my scruffy lip because I'm still balancing fine. But I'm happy I was able to make time for this session. And hopefully I can meet some of you in person next time I'm in Ethiopia. So enjoy the rest of your working weeks. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Great. Thank you very much, David. Have a great time.